Y'all can see everything. Y'all can see everything. You might have to push mute.
You'll want to turn yours down.
We're going to start in a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so y'all can see what we're going to look at today. Thank you all for coming. We'll start in about 2 more minutes. While you're waiting, go ahead and just check in. Let us know your name and your school while we're waiting. Okay, we can see you guys checking in. We have Carolyn, hi Cornelius, Morgan, Allison, Kinsey for River Chase. Yes, it is absolutely okay if you participate. Absolutely. And feel free to jump in at any time, Cornelius. Hi, Brittany. Okay, so for those who just came in, we're just checking in and typing in the name of our school and as well as your name. And we will start in about 1 more minute.
Anna Tressler, she's connecting.
Thank you for letting us know, Anna. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So today, our learning goal is that we will be able to raise the level of writing and reading through book clubs for each student in our classrooms. We're going to look at a couple of things closely today. First, we're going to look at your pre-assessments that you turned in and talk about the strengths and next steps. Also, we're going to look at some practical tools that you can use to help you begin book clubs, as well as the determining themes, strand, and the learning progressions, as well as we'll spend a lot of time studying the sessions in BIN 2. Thank you guys so much for turning in your pre-assessments. We really appreciate you um, taking that leap of faith and turning those in. We were very excited to see some of the great works that the students are doing in your classroom. So on average, the students across the district are scoring at a level range of 3 and 4, which is the end of third grade and the end of fourth. So that is a very good thing. That's showing that the kids are where they need to be. In general, you guys are using the rubrics very effectively for the pre-assessment. So thank you for doing that. We're also noticing that the students are beginning to self-assess themselves, which is a great tool for goal setting. And as well as the students are able to name why a part of the story is important. Some next steps that we notice that the students could work on from here going forward in this bin is that students need help with using quotes from the text in order to support their thinking. So just help your students find different parts of the book that supports their thinking to move their thinking forward. Also, we notice that students need support with using academic language to name the craft techniques. So if you would turn in your book on session 19 later after you watch this video, there is an anchor chart that shows the techniques of narrative writers, and that would be a great tool to start using right now to give your students the language that they need to support them in craft techniques. Determining theme is a big thing that we're going to talk about today. We're noticing that students are naming the lesson learned, and now we just need to push them to think about a universal theme as well as coming up with different texts that support the theme that they are finding in their books. Finally, we noticed that the students need work with finding the similarities and differences within text and just going a little bit deeper in that. So now you're going to get your book interpretation book clubs, and you're going to turn to Roman numeral 11, and we're going to give you a few minutes to just reread that section to know what is going to happen in bin 2 and what your students will be working on in that bin. I will come back in 3 minutes just to let you know that it's time to wrap up. And if you finished early, you may type into the chat what you're noticing, as well as talk to your table about what you're noticing in this part. Once you're finished reading the front matter, go ahead and start talking to your table mates about what you noticed in this overview. Go ahead and chat some of the big ideas that you notice with your group at this time. All right. So some of the things that you probably notice is that students are really working on building interpretations. They're going to be linking the ideas and building theories as they read their text. They're going to be taking on the ideas of others and also finding and weighing evidence that will support the most significant themes that are in their text. Students will also be working in book clubs in this bin. In their book clubs, they will be setting goals to strengthen their conversations as well as doing debates. So, in the end of the fourth grade interpretation unit in fourth grade, your students participated in book clubs and they also participated in debates. So this won't be new for your students. They will be very familiar with this. And so they will be using debates to have conflicting ideas and to learn how to use evidence to support and to stand by the ideas that they have found true with the characters in their book. So now we're going to take a couple of minutes to look at the guide to the reading workshop book. That's the little green book that came in your kit. And if you would turn to chapter 11 on page 104, we're just going to flag a few sections. And we're at this time, we're going to take a couple of minutes to read page 106 in the section called routines. And I will give you a couple of minutes just to look at that and just skim through it. And we'll talk about it in just a few minutes. As you're reading this section, go ahead and type in the chat some of the things that you've noticed with starting book clubs, maybe some tips that are valuable to you, some things that you want to try as soon as you start the bin, some things that were new for you to learn, some new learning. So go ahead and type in the chat so that we can get some feedback from you guys. Hi, Laura.
Well, I'm seeing what they're seeing, so you probably won't see it right away.
Okay, now let's talk about some things you may want to consider when beginning book clubs. The first thing you need to think about is logistics. So ask yourself, when will book clubs meet? You don't want your book clubs to meet every single day, because when they meet every single day, they may not have anything to talk about. So in the book, it mentioned to consider thinking about Tuesdays and Thursdays one week, and then Mondays and Wednesdays the next, and having your students meet for 10 to 15 minutes during the book share. And Karen, it's on page 105 and 106 in the Guide to the Reading Workshop book. Another thing you might want to consider is how much your book clubs are going to read in between the meetings. So that may be something that you want to have as a routine right after your mini lesson, for your students to think about how many pages or how many chapters they're going to read before a meeting. Also consider, how will you handle problems, or how will your students handle problems with other members in their group? So if there's a student who forgot to read last night, how will your students hold each other accountable? Will there be a club member that reminds the other club members to read before meeting? Will they have a Google Chat on Google Classroom? I know a lot of people are using technology in this book club. So just think about, how will your students hold each other accountable when there is situations happening? Okay, another thing to consider, remember that this unit is all about writing about reading. So you want to think about, how much writing about our reading will we do in a week? So students should not be coming to book clubs without any writing about reading. Their writing about reading is based on, their conversations will be based on their writing about reading. Also, you want the students to think about, what will they write about? So use the learning progressions as well as the bands of text complexities to help your students start their conversations and to start their writing about reading, so they can have a lens to focus on.
Cornelius may want to do some sharing right now. We'll see.
Okay, Cornelius, let us know if you have any ideas that you want to share as we go along as well, okay? Also think about the conversation. So how will conversations begin? Will students have a leader once a week or once a meeting that will start the conversations? So think about, who's going to start the conversations at during your book club conversations. Said, okay, okay. Holly said to divide the book by the number of days that you'll be doing the book clubs. Yeah, that's a great idea. You want your students to have the book read within 1 to 2 weeks. So you want to make sure that they are reading with enough volume and stamina as well. Thank you for sharing that, Holly. Oh, so you have the students practice conversations by walking to lunch and to gym. That's a great way to have them practice having that conversation just on a daily basis, what they do normally. Yeah. Is there a certain language that you use or some stems that you use with them, Cornelius, to get them started? Thank you, Holly. She's translating for teachers at Landry. Okay, so I'll just keep on going, and then if you have anything else to add. Oh, okay, I see Carolyn just set out 2 of the 3 choices. The conversation around. Yeah, that's a great idea. Student choice is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Carolyn. Okay, so we're going to talk about theme now. So with your table, just think about what do you think your students know about theme already? And what are some misconceptions that you've noticed that they're having, or some, what do they already know about theme? Oh, so you have your students rank all the fruit at lunch. How would that conversation start? I like that. Thank you for sharing that. In that book flow trees, they have some stems that you can use to help your students with the conversations, as well as in the unit in the bin 2. When we look at it, you'll see also some stems that you can use to get the conversations going. Okay. Awesome. Thank y'all for sharing. Okay, so now we're going to look at the determining themes, progression, and we're going to talk about that because this bin is really looking at theme work that the students will be doing. Okay, so watch me while I look closely at the determining theme strand for the narrative progression. First, I'm going to look at the first box that you see here, and this is the end of 3rd grade, and I'm going to see what is expected at this level. The first thing that I noticed is that students should be able to name a life lesson that a character in the story learns, and that's most likely going to happen at the end. Students can tell about the part of the story that shows this lesson, and so you can see here, that's where I'm getting this language from. Okay, so it might sound like Sam learned that it is important to work together. For example, and then the student gave text evidence to support the lesson that Sam learned in the story. So now as I look at the 4th grade in the shift from 3rd to 4th grade, I'm noticing that students really have to think about what the story is all about, what it's really about. So they have to think about what is the big idea in the story and how can they find those examples of the character realizing that something big all throughout the story, from beginning, also in the middle, as well as in the end. So it may sound like one theme in the story is that in life, it is important to work together. At the beginning of the story, and then they gave text evidence, then later, and then give additional text evidence that relate to the theme. So this one is more about a universal theme versus a lesson that the character learns at the end. So now what I want you to do with your table is to look at the 4th grade learning progression as well as 5th grade in your books. And I want you to talk about what's the shift between 4th grade to 5th grade. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that. By the way, we're reading out of the reading pathways on page 186. I would love to see that commons theme chart. That would be a great resource for the fifth grade kiddos. All right, awesome. So Anna has it in Spanish and we have the copy from Cornelia. So what we'll do is we'll share this with you guys at the end and we'll put it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for sharing your resources. Okay, so now that you had a couple of minutes to look at the fourth to fifth grade, let's talk about the shift. Now, you will notice that a lot of your students are going to be hanging right here at fourth grade with the universal theme and giving examples from the beginning, middle, and end of the text that support the theme. Okay, the difference in fifth grade is that there are multiple themes. So no longer is there only one theme of the story, but there may be multiple. And they are going to figure out which one is the most significant themes throughout the book. Also, you will notice that the story elements develop each theme. So you're really looking at how does the setting develop the theme. And in this unit, you'll really be talking about the problems that the character face and how those problems really lead to understanding the theme that is found in the book. Finally, you'll notice that in this fifth grade section of the progressions and theme, that the students will really have to look at the author's craft and note that the author is going to use craft moves to convey the theme. Also in fifth grade, they will still use quotes from the text and also understanding that the exact words that the author used help convey the theme as well. Okay, so now we're going to spend a couple of minutes studying the sessions. So what you're going to do in your groups, you're all going to pick one session to study, starting from session 8 all the way on to the end of bin 2, which is session 14. Remember this anchor chart that we did at the beginning of the year. So remember, in order to quickly plan a mini lesson, you're going to read in the session part. You're going to scan over the connection Read closely the teaching points, say it in your own words, read the teaching part, and then also think about the link. What are the students going to be doing when they walk away from you? And then you're going to jot just enough information so that you know what you're going to be doing. So you're going to write down the connect, your teaching point, active engagement, and link. And also, in this one, as I mentioned before in our training, that you also want to note your teaching method. So I did not add that to the anchor chart, but also note how you're going to teach it. So now you have 10 minutes to pick one session and then decide in your group who's going to teach each session or study each session. And then we'll come back and you're going to teach it to your group. You have 5 more minutes to read your one session
And be prepared.
and be prepared to teach. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to have time to teach. So each person will have 5 minutes. So you'll need to look at the clock and you're going to just present what you've just read for your sessions to the rest of your group.
Don't talk about it.
So what you're going to do is you're not going to just talk about it, but you're going to teach it to your group. So now is your time to teach. You have 5 minutes, and then it'll be the next person's turn. So we have a total of 20 minutes for teach time. All right, let's get started. Okay, we have 20 seconds left. Go ahead and start typing out some of the big ideas that you noticed in the session that you just taught. No, there is not a video in Spanish for session 14, but if you would love to have your kids go ahead and do book clubs and we can record it and make sure that they're all clear, we would love to add that into our Canvas. So let us know if you want to volunteer, Ethel. All right, so we're going to go through each session and just highlight some big things that you can flag to remember and to turn back to later. So starting in session 8, which is on page 68, this is when your students will begin to launch their book clubs. So you will note that at the very beginning in the connection, your students will be sitting in their book club groups at the meeting area. So go ahead and have a rough seating chart of where your students will sit for your mini lesson for the book clubs. So they need to sit close to their book club partners throughout this bin because they will be doing a lot of turning and talking with their book club. Also, you may note that in the link, you're really having students really look closely for the significance. So if you need students to look at some student writing, you can see on figure 1.8 what they are going to do. So they're going to read this, reread their anchor charts, not the anchor charts, but they're writing about reading and start preparing for talking with their jots. Okay, so they're going to be choosing the spot for their reading. And then they're going to have the person reread and jot to prepare for their talking for their book club. So whenever you're ending your mini lesson, they need to have their plan already ready to have the discussion during the share time because they will be doing their discussion for book clubs during share. Okay. Another thing to notice on page 75, for your students that are reading below benchmark, you will want to use the more structure of guided reading for those students. So you will notice that, and that's the process chart that you see on your screen here. That is the process chart from page 75. Okay. Also on page 77, you'll note the book club constitution, and your students have seen this in 3rd and 4th grade as well. So this is not new for them. In session 9, the students are really thinking about, this is that part to whole work that we were talking about earlier in that the kids did in their pre-assessment. So they're really going to be looking at the problem and how this problem leads the readers to think about theme. Yes, Allison, I can send you those process charts via email once we're done with the link. Okay, I'll send you a picture of them. Sure. Okay, so if you would, on page 82, go ahead and flag. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier, and it shows some possible themes that the class in this mini lesson came up with for Home of the Brave. So you can come up with some as well. And like we talked about earlier, you can do like common themes or universal themes that you notice around the world or in movies, whatever fits best for you in your teaching style. On page 84 in that same lesson, session 9, you will note that there are some questions that we talked about earlier, ways to push your thinking. So these are some questions that your students can ask themselves to push their thinking about that part to whole work, to really think about how does the problem or the scene really help you think about what's mostly important to the story, and how does that lead to the theme. So you may want to flag page 84 in that small group and conferring notes, and make that little those questions on a ring for your students to kind of refer back to. You also may want to highlight on page 85 in the share that she tells them if you haven't read at least 20 pages today, that you need to continue reading. So we still want to make sure that our students are reading with enough volume and stamina in order to grow those ideas as they're reading. Okay, in session 10, you will notice that there's a video that your students should watch during the active engagement. And I'll click the link and just let me know if you can hear the video. I'll just show a little bit of it. What you're going to be doing is you're going to ask your students to really name what the students are doing and name what is going well with this book club. Just let me know in the comments if you can hear it.
Here is like she wants to get friends, but she can't. She just fell and like the person she was laughing, and Steven was Antonio was helping her, and when you staying there because you kind of sped through it. Not only that, the laughter is distracting her from Antonio, but it's also like all the worry of what's going to happen. And big crowd of people. Yeah, because she she really wanted to make friends.
Okay, it looks like someone can't, like you guys can't hear anymore, but just from what you saw, the little pieces that you saw, what did you notice that the students are doing? What are they talking about? So go ahead and type that in the chat and let us know, just from the little piece that you did see, what did you notice that the students were doing in their book clubs, and what did their conversations look like? Let's try it again. I'm gonna keep playing, and as you listen, see if you can notice some other things.
But
can y'all hear it now?
like she felt like laughter. She heard laughter, and like now she's kind of like really sad because just because she fell, and just because she fell, like she heard like a lot of laughter. Like now she's like very nervous. It's like it isn't just because she fell. It's because she fell. Because she heard laughter in the front. I was like oh my god! It's like look, feeling the pressure, yeah, because like she's right there, she's running. I was like she just trips right in front of a big crowd of school bus, and everyone's laughing at her. He's like, what is constant pressure or peer pressure? This just makes her day a bad day because she still has all this other stuff to worry about without falling, not falling in the middle of the crowd. She's just one thing that's just during her first day. Well, I think that since you're talking about all the laughter, I think not just the laughter, there's like her dress too, because I hear that Roosevelt didn't answer. He just like, no.
So what you guys have probably noticed is that the kids are really building on each other's ideas and they're staying with one idea and they're growing their thoughts about that one idea. So that's something that will be huge in that lesson for you to teach your students how to do. Also in this session, you'll notice this figure here. So what students are doing is they're naming the theme in their book and then they're all writing small ideas that they're noticing as they're reading. And so what they'll do is they'll pick one idea and talk long about that one idea and really build on that. So that might be a great tool for you to try with your class. All right, so we'll give you a couple of minutes to just kind of gather your thoughts and kind of talk about what did you notice with those book clubs. All right, so we're just going to go over two more sessions. All right, let's see. Session 11. So in session 11, you're really showing the students how one student can take several Post-it notes and then create a big idea from that. So this is a teach and explain an example teaching method. So you will need this sample from Sam in order to show your students how this work is done. So here's the process chart for it, and this comes straight from the teaching notes, and it's just made in a clear way for students to understand. So what they're going to be doing is rereading the ideas, and they're going to be looking at their Post-its from their books to see if those ideas fit together. Next, they're going to notice patterns across those ideas. So Palmer is different when he's around Bean, and Palmer is different when he's around Dorothy. So we're noticing that he's different. He acts in different ways when he's around different people. So now what they're going to do is they're going to ask themselves, do these ideas connect to form a larger idea? And then what life lessons could be learned from this? So they can start their sentence with, my bigger idea is, or my new theory is, and then they're going to write a new theory about their character based on all of the Post-its that they have gathered throughout their books. All right. So now, oh wait, did I skip a session? No? Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to just have a little time for you to type in any questions that you may have in the chat. And then we're just going to spend time, Susan and I will spend time answering any questions that you may have.
How the teacher lists the level of the conversation.
So we're just going to spend some time answering any questions that you have or concerns that you may have while you're doing this unit. It may not be in this bin. It may be something that you're currently experiencing now. So any questions that y'all have, just let us know. We're happy to talk about it. Oh, yeah. You guys also, while I'm waiting to hear your questions, you may want to flag page 119 and 120 because your students will really use this idea to come up with debatable ideas when they start their debate clubs, debating in their book clubs, excuse me. And then on page 122 gives them that language as well.
Looking down like they don't think it's me.
Okay, so we did not get any questions, but please feel free to tweet us any questions or comments that you have after we end this chat. Also, you will notice in the comment section below that we have a Google form that we would like to get your feedback. So please fill that out so that we can get feedback to let us know if you like doing this live, any questions that you may have, anything that you would like for us to change for next time. Would you like to do this again? Let us know. Thank you so much for trying this new adventure with us. We really appreciate all the hard work you do for our kiddos here in CFB. Thank you guys for coming. Don't forget to tweet.